How you doing, everyone? Welcome back. Well, I had a comment on a recent video, actually one that is still being discussed. I'm getting actually some rather negative comments. I believe the title was "Oh Snap, Let the Peasants Starve" or something like that. You know the one. It's about and it's the one about SNAP benefits ending on November 1st. And of course there are a lot of people in those comments actually supporting that idea. Letting SNAP stop. And some even said, what, just stop the whole program completely. Well, that's not really the where I wasn't going back to the SNAP well with this video, but one of the comments actually brought up a good point, and unfortunately I don't remember the commenter's name, but this person mentioned that Congress, they're a bunch of leeches who are only looking out for themselves, right? Which is true. I mean, they're a bunch of leeches. They're not looking out for you. They're looking out for themselves. This, by the way, is Elliot. If you're new here and have never seen Elliot, I've actually got 5 of these little things running around here somewhere. This guy, I don't know, for some reason he likes climbing up on my shoulder like this. And he's going to jump off. Watch this. Or, no, I guess he's going to go that way. He's going to jump off. No, I guess he's not. Normally what he does is he climbs up there and he launches himself. But anyway, Elliot distracted me. Where was I going? Congress. I got distracted by another leech, if you will. A little mooch. Anyway, this Congress being a bunch of leeches who are only looking out for themselves and not for you. True. Absolutely true. I mean, they're, buying and selling stocks on insider information, and it's all perfectly legal because they make the laws, right? And really, we need to put a ban on them trading stocks while they are in Congress, right? And there are some other reforms that need to be put into place. For example, the last video that I did, right, I mentioned that, we have government employees who are not getting paid right now. But guess who is? Congress. Oh, and by the way, they're not even in session. They're not even in session. Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, won't let the House come back into session while the government is shut down. Meanwhile, how are you going to end the shutdown without calling the House into session? Gee, I don't know. I wonder. So, I mean, Johnson is also the same guy who said that, despite his party having control over the House, the Senate, and the White House, that they're not in charge of the government. They're not in charge. He actually said that. But they're getting paid while the government is shut down. Meanwhile, air traffic controllers, military, your paper pushers at whatever agencies, they're not getting paid. Park rangers, nope, none of it. None of them are getting paid. But they are. They are. I wonder why that is. I have not independently done the math on this, but I saw I want to say it was on Reddit where I saw this. Somebody said that they make about $83 an hour, right? Well, somehow I doubt that's accurate because they don't work a 40-hour week. They don't work a 40-hour week for 50 weeks, 52 weeks a year, right? They just do. They are not interested in you. There are exceptions. There are exceptions, but most of them are not interested in you. They're not interested in me. They're just interested in lining their own pockets. And there are some ideas to actually change that, reform that. One of which is to, and this is an idea that I like, to have their salary in line with no more than 1.5 times the median salary of their districts. And honestly, I mean, I think they ought to get paid the median salary. Nothing more. You know what? If the average person in your district makes $50,000 a year, well, they're getting by on it. You get by on $50,000 a year. If, I mean, there are some districts where you're going to get paid more because, they're wealthier districts. Others where you're going to get paid less. But, I mean, that's one idea. Then again, I also believe that that they should not be on the federal payroll, right? They ought to be on, their salary should come from their states. Because who do they work for? They don't work for the federal government. They work for us, right? The Senate is supposed to actually work for the states, or at least that's the way it was originally set up, for the states. And the House was set up to work for the people, right? So they ought to be paid by their states, whatever the state deems an acceptable salary, as voted on by the people. But that's just my thought on it. Again, ban them from trading stocks, because we know they're using insider information. I'm looking at you, Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, we all know. We all know. You like to say that it wasn't you who was trading stocks. That it was your husband. And yes, he was wealthy. My understanding is he was wealthy before she ever went to Congress. But he increased his wealth with information that she had. So yeah, she's corrupt. She's not the only one. There are plenty of Republicans, plenty of Democrats that are very corrupt. Right? And, I mean, there are some who don't receive any big donor money. Some who don't receive corporate donations. Which, by the way, is something else that I think we ought to get rid of, is corporate donations to campaigns, right? Corporate donations. Yeah, because who does that put them in the pocket of, right? If a corporation, which, by the way, according to the Supreme Court, corporations are people, the Citizens United decision. And by the way, I told you I have more than one of those things around here. This is Penelope. But yeah, the Citizens United decision made basically the ruling was that corporations are people because they're made up of people, right? Well, no. See, corporations should not be allowed to donate to campaigns. They just shouldn't. The reason for that is because, well, look who is getting all the government benefits. There's a reason corporate welfare is a term, right? Because it absolutely exists. Hey, you know what? I'm going to bribe you and you're going to give me some kickbacks on it. Meanwhile, you know, a guy like me, right? I can donate to campaigns. What am I going to get in return for it? Well, considering I live in an area where I don't support my congressional representative and I don't support either of my senators, I'm not going to get anything. But even if I do donate to a campaign that I support, which I have done, and that candidate wins, what do I get out of it? Hopefully good governance. That's all I want out of it. Good governance. But, you know, I mean, that's not what we have now, right? We have a bunch of people who are just afraid to stand up to the toddler-in-chief, right? They're afraid to stand up to him and say, hey, you know what? Look, you've got some terrible ideas that we're not going to go along with. We're not going to keep the government shut down. You know, we're not going to go along with this whole idea of you launching wars in Venezuela, and now he's talking about Nigeria as well. Oh yeah, he put out a post on that. You know, basically going to go after Nigeria. You know, and you know, because look, should we do something about Christians being killed in other countries? Yes, we should do anything about anyone being killed anywhere. Right? But does that mean attacking Nigeria? No, not necessarily. Just like attacking Venezuela, supposedly because they're sending fentanyl here, which they're not. Venezuela does not produce fentanyl. They produce other drugs, sure. Oh, and by the way, those boats that were blown up off the coast of Venezuela, they did not have the range to get to the United States. They would have to stop and refuel, like 24 times or something like that. You know, they didn't have the range to actually get here. If they were on their way to anywhere other than just off the coast, and if they weren't just fishing, they were likely on their way to someplace like, you know, Trinidad and Tobago, which is nearby, right? But whatever. Again, I got distracted. So instead of bowing down to the whims of the president, stand up to him. And by the way, take back your authority on tariffs, because he does not have the authority that he is taking. He is taking authority that does not belong to him under the Constitution. It is the Congress. It's the Congress that declares war, but yet he wants to go to war. The peace president wants to go to war, right? He's already bombed Iran, Yemen. He is supporting the genocide in Gaza. He refuses to end the war or to even do anything to try to end the war between Russia and Ukraine, even though he said he'd have it done on day one. He claims credit for ending 8 wars, which he did not do. He has not ended any wars. Right? He has not ended any wars. He just hasn't. The 8 that, first of all right, some Pakistan and India, right? He had nothing to do with it. And it wasn't even a war. It was a little bit of a skirmish on the border, right? Because Kashmir has been contested between those two countries for a long time. Right? He mentioned another one between Egypt and I want to say Ethiopia, maybe. It was a water dispute over the Nile, right? But it wasn't a war. He wants to say that he ended the war in Gaza, which he didn't. He negotiated a ceasefire, which I would give him credit for, except that it was violated, like, right after it was brokered. Right? So, there's that. There was another war that he said he ended, but it's still raging. Yeah. He has ended wars with countries that weren't even at war. But now he's talking about going to war. He renamed the Department of Defense, or he thinks he did anyway. Officially he hasn't, because officially he can't on his own. And Congress won't stand up to him. They're giving him authority that he doesn't have, right? They are bowing down instead of working for us, right? And how do we get them to work for us? Well, again, I came up with some ideas on that. And again, they're not all my ideas, right? Actually, most of them are not my ideas, right? Like I said, I had a commenter on a previous video who brought this up, right? We need to ban the stock trading for members of Congress. We need to ban corporate donations to campaigns. Again, not my idea, but one that I like. As far as the states paying their salaries, that might be my idea. I don't know. I may have heard that from someone. I don't remember. I've actually thought that for a long time. But I don't remember where I got that idea originally. I don't remember if I thought it up myself or if I had heard it somewhere, right? But yeah, I mean, there are things we can do. Of course, some of them. Term limits, that's a big one. Again, not my idea, but that's an idea that I have supported for decades. I have supported it for decades. We have term limits on the president. Why not have term limits on Congress? There's no reason they shouldn't have term limits. There is no reason that somebody like Chuck Grassley, who has been in office since most people didn't even know what cable TV was, or if they did know what it was, they couldn't afford to have it. Most people didn't have cable TV when he first went into the Senate. A lot of us still had 3 channels that you had to get up and walk across the room to turn a dial to change. Yeah, for you young people, that's a real thing that actually happened. My dad had a voice-activated remote control for our TV. Get up and put that on channel 2. And so I would get up and walk across the room and click, click, click until it was on channel 2. Yeah. That's literally a thing that happened. So, yeah. Congress, they're not looking out for us. If they were, they'd be in session. Oh, and also, if they were looking out for us, I mean, the people of Arizona voted for a representative in a special election that the Speaker of the House won't swear in. So, definitely not looking out for the people in that district of Arizona, right? Swear her in, Mikey. Why are you afraid of that? Oh, yeah, because she'll be the 218th signature on the discharge petition to release the Epstein files. Why are you afraid of the files coming out if your boy is so innocent there, Mikey? I mean, we're told there's nothing in there, which is why we can't see them. That doesn't make any sense now, does it? Anyway, I'm getting off on another tangent here. I have a tendency to do that sometimes. But yeah, we need to reform Congress. We need to reform that because there are too many ways in which they are not looking out for us. They are looking out for themselves. And we need to take away any incentive that they have to look out for anyone other than their constituents. And with that said, before I go off on another tangent, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I'll see y'all next time.